Welcome to my channel, where I focus on creating short fanfiction stories set in the Naruto universe. Chapter 21, Under the Gun. The base was buzzing with activity as the resistance prepared to relocate. People moved like a well-oiled machine, packing up supplies, checking weapons, and getting vehicles ready for the journey. The tension in the air was palpable, everyone aware that a single misstep could spell disaster. After Trevor's betrayal, trust was at an all-time low. Naruto watched as groups of fighters checked their gear, sacked, each movement deliberate and efficient. He couldn't help but feel a surge of admiration for these people, ordinary humans facing an almost impossible fight. But the weight of Trevor's words still hung over him. They'll strike when the move begins. John and Kyle had made last-minute changes to the relocation plan. Only a few trusted individuals knew the true routes and destinations. Despite their best efforts, the threat of an ambush loomed large. Naruto found himself in the garage area, where vehicles were being prepped for departure. The smell of gasoline and oil filled the air, mixing with the tension of the resistance fighters checking weapons and supplies. He caught sight of a familiar figure near the armored truck, a tall, stocky man with a stern expression. "Dave," Naruto called, approaching the man. "How's everything going here?" Dave, one of the Resistance's most experienced fighters, turned with a nod. "Naruto, we're almost ready. Just making final checks." Naruto glanced around. "Good. Stay sharp. After what happened with Trevor, we can't afford any surprises." Dave's face hardened. "Yeah, heard about that. Bastard. If there are more like him, we'll root them out." Naruto gave a tight smile. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." As the preparations continued, Naruto felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. Despite the tension, despite the uncertainty, there was something almost comforting about being in the thick of it. This was what he knew. Being in the middle of a fight, protecting people. Even if it was a world he didn't fully understand, the principles were the same. He was just about to head back to the command center when he spotted Hinata. She was overseeing a group loading supplies onto a truck, her expression focused. Naruto hesitated. Their interactions had been brief since they'd met, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her presence here than she let on. He walked over. "Hinata." She turned, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Naruto, something you need?" Naruto paused, searching her face. She was so much like the Hinata he knew, yet so different. He couldn't place it, but there was something in her eyes, something fierce and unyielding that he hadn't seen in the Hinata from his world. "I just wanted to say, be careful out there," he said finally. "This move is risky. We don't know what we're walking into." Hinata's expression softened for a moment before hardening again. "I appreciate the concern, but I can take care of myself." Naruto nodded, a slight smile on his lips. "I don't doubt it." He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Hey, Naruto." He looked back, raising an eyebrow. "Why are you here?" she asked, her tone curious but guarded. "You're not like the rest of us. It's obvious. So why fight with us?" Naruto considered her question, his mind flashing back to all he'd been through since arriving in this world. "Because I've always fought to protect people. Doesn't matter where or when. If there are people who need help, I'll be there." Hinata studied him for a long moment before nodding. "That's a good answer." The final preparations were underway. John and Kyle moved through the base, giving orders and double-checking everything. Naruto stayed close, ready to act at a moment's notice. He knew Trevor's people might try something before they even left the base. As the first convoy of vehicles began to move out, Naruto felt his pulse quicken. This is it. The convoy moved slowly, cautiously, winding through the broken streets and shattered buildings. Every shadow felt like a threat, every corner a potential ambush site. Naruto rode in one of the middle vehicles, his eyes scanning the surroundings constantly. Then it happened. A flash of movement in the distance, followed by the deafening roar of an explosion. The lead vehicle was hit, flames erupting into the sky. Chaos erupted as the convoy halted, fighters scrambling to respond. "Ambush!" someone shouted, and then the gunfire started. Naruto leapt from the vehicle, landing in the middle of the street. He saw bandits pouring out from the ruins on either side, firing wildly. But it wasn't just bandits, there were machines too. Sleek, deadly Terminators moving with terrifying precision. Naruto's instincts kicked in. He darted forward, weaving through the chaos, his hands flashing through hand signs. With a shout, he unleashed a wave of chakra, knocking several attackers back. But then he felt it, his chakra faltering. The strain of being in this world, of fighting without his full strength, was taking its toll. He gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain. A Terminator advanced on him, its red eyes glowing menacingly. Naruto dodged its first strike, then spun, delivering a powerful kick that sent it crashing into a nearby wall. But more were coming, and he could see the resistance fighters struggling to hold their ground. He spotted John and Kyle near one of the trucks, fighting off a group of bandits. Naruto moved to join them, but a sudden explosion rocked the street, knocking him off his feet. He hit the ground hard, his vision blurring for a moment. When he looked up, he saw a group of bandits closing in on him, weapons raised. Not good. Before he could react, a burst of gunfire rang out, cutting down the bandits in a spray of blood. Naruto looked up, seeing Hinata standing over him, a rifle in her hands. "Get up!" she shouted, her voice fierce. "We're not done yet." Naruto scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding. Together, they fought back, driving the attackers away from the convoy. The resistance fighters were regrouping, pushing the bandits back despite the overwhelming odds. But the machines were relentless. More Terminators appeared, their cold, metallic forms advancing through the smoke and fire. Naruto knew they couldn't hold them off forever. "We need to retreat," John shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "Fall back to the secondary position." The order was given, and the convoy began to pull back, fighters covering the retreat. Naruto and Hinata fought side by side, holding the line as best they could. But it was clear they were outnumbered and outgunned. As they moved, Naruto spotted something that made his blood run cold. A dark figure moving through the smoke. A Terminator unlike any he had seen before. It was larger, more heavily armored, and its eyes glowed with an eerie, unnatural light. It was heading straight for John. Naruto's heart lurched. He had to do something, but his chakra was nearly depleted. Desperation surged through him, and he reached deep, trying to summon whatever strength he had left. With a roar, he charged forward, intercepting the Terminator just as it reached John. He struck with everything he had, his fists blazing with blue energy. The force of the impact sent the Terminator stumbling back, but it didn't go down. It turned its gaze on Naruto, its expressionless face somehow more menacing than anything he had ever faced. "This is bad." The machine lunged at him, and Naruto barely managed to dodge. He struck again and again, but his attacks barely seemed to scratch its armored surface. The machine was relentless, its movements precise and deadly. Naruto's vision blurred as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. He knew he couldn't keep this up much longer. Then, out of nowhere, a burst of gunfire slammed into the machine's head, staggering it. Naruto looked up to see Hinata, her face set in a determined grimace. Firing with a heavy machine gun, she must have grabbed from one of the trucks. "Go," she shouted at Naruto. "I'll cover you." Naruto didn't hesitate. He turned and ran, his heart pounding as he made his way back to the retreating convoy. He knew they were barely holding on, and if they didn't get out of there soon, they'd be overwhelmed. The resistance managed to pull back, but the cost was high. Several vehicles had been destroyed, and many fighters were injured or worse. Naruto sat in the back of one of the trucks, breathing heavily, his body aching from the fight. John approached him, his face grim. "You did good, Naruto. You saved a lot of lives today." Naruto shook his head, his expression weary. "We barely made it. If there's more of those things out there, we'll deal with it," John said firmly. "We have to." Naruto nodded, but a sense of unease lingered. The attack had been too well coordinated, too precise. There was no way the bandits and machines had just stumbled upon them. Somehow, someone had tipped them off. As the convoy continued its retreat, Naruto's thoughts turned back to the base, to the people left behind. There were still questions that needed answers, still shadows lurking in the corners of this war-torn world, and he would find those answers, no matter what it took. Chapter 22: Shadows and Light. The convoy reached the secondary base without further incident, though the silence that followed was almost more unsettling than the chaos of the ambush. The resistance fighters moved with grim determination, tending to the wounded, securing the perimeter, and counting their losses. Naruto stepped out of one of the trucks, his body aching from the strain of battle. His eyes scanned the new base, an abandoned industrial complex fortified with makeshift defenses. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. He made his way to the command center, a makeshift setup inside an old warehouse. John, Kyle, and several high-ranking members of the Resistance were gathered around a map spread out on a metal table, discussing their next move. "We need to be ready to move again if we're compromised," Kyle was saying, his voice tense. "We can't stay in one place for too long." John nodded, his expression grim. "Agreed. But we also need to figure out who the hell sold us out. That ambush was too perfect to be a coincidence." Naruto stepped forward, drawing their attention. "What's the situation?" John looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly. "We've secured the perimeter, but we're on high alert. If there's a spy, they might try to contact their handlers again." Naruto frowned, his mind racing. "Do we have any leads?" "We're still working on it," Kyle said, his frustration evident. "But if there's a mole, they're good at covering their tracks. We've got people checking communications, but so far nothing suspicious." Naruto nodded, his gaze shifting to the map. His thoughts turned to the ambush, to the precision of the attack. There had to be a way to find out who was behind it, but how? "We need to flush them out," he said finally. "Set a trap, make them think they've got an opportunity to strike again." John exchanged a glance with Kyle. "It's risky. If they catch on, we could end up walking right into another trap." "I know," Naruto admitted, "but it might be the only way to draw them out." After the meeting, Naruto made his way through the base, observing the fighters as they worked to secure their new home. Despite the losses, there was a sense of determination in the air. These people weren't about to give up, no matter how bad things got. He found himself near the supply depot, where a group of fighters were unloading crates of ammunition and medical supplies. One of them, a young woman with short, curly hair, looked up as he approached. "Hey, you're Naruto, right?" she said, her voice friendly despite the strain in her expression. "Yeah," Naruto replied, offering a small smile. "And you are?" "Jules," she said, brushing a lock of hair out of her face. "I heard about what you did during the ambush. Impressive stuff." Naruto shrugged, feeling a bit awkward under the praise. "Just doing my part." Jules smiled, but there was a shadow in her eyes. "We need more people like you, especially now." Naruto frowned. "What do you mean?" She glanced around, lowering her voice. "People are scared. After what happened with Trevor, well, it's hard to know who to trust." Naruto nodded, his expression serious. "I get that, but we have to stick together. If we start doubting each other, we're finished." Jules sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "I know. It's just hard. You think you know someone, and then they turn out to be working for the enemy." Naruto's heart ached as he looked at her. These people were fighting a war they barely had a chance of winning, and now they were being torn apart from the inside. He had to find the traitor. For their sake, if not his own. Later that evening, Naruto found himself in one of the base's makeshift barracks. He sat on a bunk, his mind racing as he tried to piece together everything he knew. Someone in the base was working for Skynet, or possibly for the bandits. The question was, who? He thought back to the ambush, to the way the machines had appeared right when they were most vulnerable. Someone had to have given their position away. But how? And why? A sudden voice broke through his thoughts. "You're thinking too hard." Naruto looked up to see Hinata standing in the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest. Her expression was a mix of curiosity and concern. "What do you mean?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "You look like you're about to burst a blood vessel," she said with a slight smirk. "Whatever it is, you're not going to solve it by staring at the wall." Naruto sighed, running a hand through his hair. I can't shake the feeling that I'm missing something. Someone here is working against us, and I don't know who or why." Hinata's eyes softened slightly as she stepped into the room. "It's not your responsibility to fix everything, you know." Naruto snorted. "Tell that to everyone I've ever met." Hinata chuckled, but her gaze was serious. "You're not alone in this fight, Naruto. We're all in this together." Naruto nodded, but the weight of his thoughts didn't lift. He knew she was right, but that didn't make the burden any easier to bear. "Thanks, Hinata," he said quietly. "I needed to hear that." She smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "Anytime." The next day, Naruto put his plan into action. He and Kyle spread a rumor through the base that they had found a new cache of weapons and supplies hidden in a nearby industrial district. It was a risky move, but if the spy took the bait, they might be able to catch them in the act. The atmosphere in the base was tense as they waited. Naruto watched from the shadows, his senses on high alert. He could feel the unease in the air, the uncertainty that came with knowing someone in their midst was a traitor. Hours passed, and then nothing. Naruto's heart sank as the sun dipped below the horizon. Had they miscalculated? Or was the spy simply too clever to take the bait? As he was about to call it off, a sudden movement caught his eye. A figure slipped out of one of the barracks, moving stealthily toward the communications center. Naruto's pulse quickened. Got you. He followed, keeping to the shadows as the figure moved through the base. They entered the communications room, and Naruto waited, his body tense, every muscle coiled like a spring. After a few moments, he slipped inside, his footsteps silent on the concrete floor. The figure was hunched over a terminal, typing rapidly. Naruto crept closer, his heart pounding in his chest. He was almost close enough to grab them when the figure suddenly spun around, a knife flashing in their hand. Naruto reacted instinctively, dodging the blade and grabbing the figure's arm. They struggled, but he twisted their wrist, forcing them to drop the knife. The figure's hood fell back, revealing a face twisted in fear and desperation. Jules? Naruto gasped, his mind reeling. She stared up at him, her eyes wide with terror. Naruto, please. Naruto's grip tightened. Why, Jules? Why would you do this? Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. I didn't have a choice. They have my family. If I didn't help them, they would have. Naruto's heart clenched. Who? Skynet? The bandits? Jules sobbed, her body shaking. Skynet. They promised they wouldn't hurt them if I gave them information. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. I swear. Naruto's mind raced. It made sense now. The precise attacks, the perfect timing. She must have been feeding them information for weeks, if not longer. Jules, he began, but she shook her head violently. I'm sorry, Naruto. I didn't want to, but I couldn't. I couldn't let them die. Naruto's heart ached as he looked at her. He knew what it was like to be forced to make impossible choices, to be caught between loyalty and love. But he also knew he couldn't let her continue to put everyone else in danger. I have to take you to John, he said quietly. You know that, right? Jules's face crumpled, but she nodded, tears still streaming down her cheeks. I know, just please. If you can help them. My family. They're all I have left. Naruto nodded, his throat tight. I'll do what I can. With that, he led her out of the communications room, his heart heavy with the weight of what he had to do. Jules had betrayed them, but she had done it out of love, out of desperation. And in this world, where every day was a fight for survival, who could blame her? Chapter 23. Betrayal and Redemption. The air was heavy with tension as Naruto led Jules into the command center. The room went silent as they entered, every eye turning to them. John and Kyle stood by the central table, their expressions hardening as they saw Jules. What's going on, Naruto? John asked, his voice low and controlled. Naruto took a deep breath, his grip still firm on Jules's arm. She's the spy. She's been feeding information to Skynet. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Kyle's eyes narrowed as he stepped forward. Is this true? Jules trembled, her face pale and streaked with tears. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely audible. They have my family. I had no choice. John's face softened slightly, but his tone remained stern. And what did you give them, Jules? How long have you been feeding them information? She swallowed hard, her voice shaking. A few weeks. I told them about the supply runs, the location of some of our bases. I didn't want anyone to get hurt, but they made me. Naruto watched as the room erupted into chaos. Anger, betrayal, and disbelief surged through the ranks of the resistance fighters. Some shouted accusations, others stood in stunned silence, processing the revelation. John raised his hand, silencing the room. Enough, he barked. His gaze turned back to Jules, his expression unreadable. Why didn't you come to us? We could have helped you. Jules shook her head desperately. I didn't know who to trust. They said if I told anyone, they'd kill my family. I couldn't risk it. Kyle's jaw tightened. And how do we know you're not still working for them? That this isn't just another ploy to gain our sympathy? Jules's eyes widened with fear. No, I swear, I just wanted to protect my family. Please, I'll do anything to help you now. Just don't let them hurt my family. John and Kyle exchanged a long, tense look. Naruto could see the conflict in their eyes. They needed to make an example of her to maintain order and morale, but they also knew the desperation that came from loving someone in this shattered world. Naruto stepped forward, his voice steady. We need to help her family. If we can rescue them, it's one less piece Skynet has to use against us. John frowned, but he didn't dismiss the idea. And what do you propose we do, Naruto? March into a Skynet stronghold? No, Naruto said quickly, but we can find out where they're being held. If we can get them out, Jules won't have any reason to keep helping Skynet. It's worth the risk. Kyle looked skeptical. And what if this is just a trap? We'll be careful, Naruto assured him, but we can't just abandon people to those machines. If we do, we're no better than they are. John sighed, rubbing his temples. The room was silent, everyone waiting for his decision. Finally, he nodded. All right. We'll send a team to scout the location. If it's viable, we'll make a move. But if there's any sign it's a setup, we're pulling out. Understood? Naruto nodded, relief washing over him. Understood. John turned to Jules. You're going to tell us everything you know. Locations, patrol routes, any information you have. If we're going to do this, we're doing it right. Jules nodded, her body still trembling. I'll tell you everything. Just, please, help them. John nodded curtly. We will, but you're under guard until this is over. If you try anything at all, you'll be dealt with. Do you understand? Jules nodded again, tears still glistening in her eyes. I understand. The next few days were a blur of preparation and tension. The team chosen for the rescue mission included Naruto, Kyle, and a few of the Resistance's best fighters. Jules provided as much information as she could about the Skynet facility where her family was supposedly being held. It was risky, borderline suicidal, but Naruto knew they had to try. As they geared up in the base's armory, Kyle approached Naruto, his expression serious. You know this could be a trap, right? Naruto nodded, strapping a holster to his thigh. Yeah, I know. But we can't just leave her family to die. If we don't do this, Skynet will just find another way to use them against us. Kyle sighed, adjusting his rifle. You've got a good heart, Naruto. Just don't let it get you killed. Naruto smiled slightly. I'll be careful, Kyle. I promise. The team moved out at dawn, traveling light and fast. They avoided Skynet patrols, using every trick they knew to stay hidden. The tension was palpable, every sound, every shadow potentially hiding danger. They reached the facility just as the sun began to set, the sky streaked with crimson and gold. Naruto crouched in the underbrush, his eyes scanning the perimeter. The facility was heavily guarded, with Terminators patrolling the outer fences and automated turrets sweeping the area. Looks tight, Kyle muttered, his voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. You see any way in? Naruto narrowed his eyes, focusing his senses. There's a blind spot near the east side. We can get through the fence there, but we'll need to move fast. Kyle nodded. All right, let's do this. The team moved silently, slipping through the shadows like ghosts. They reached the fence, and Naruto made quick work of the metal links, slicing through them with precise cuts. One by one, they slipped inside, hugging the wall as they made their way toward the main building. The tension was almost unbearable as they crept through the facility, avoiding patrols and cameras. Naruto's heart pounded in his chest, every sense on high alert. They were close, he could feel it. Finally, they reached a set of cells in the lower levels. Naruto peered around the corner, his breath catching as he saw a group of people huddled inside one of the cages. A man, a woman, and 2 children, Jules's family. He signaled to the team, and they moved in quickly, neutralizing the guards with silent efficiency. Naruto approached the cell, his hands glowing faintly with chakra as he cut through the lock. The family looked up, their eyes wide with fear and hope. Who are you? The man asked, his voice hoarse. We're friends of Jules, Naruto said softly. We're here to get you out. The man's eyes filled with tears. Jules, is she okay? She's fine, Naruto assured him. We just need to get you out of here. The family gathered together, relief and fear mingling in their expressions. Naruto led them back through the facility, his heart pounding with every step. They were almost out when a shrill alarm pierced the air. Shit! Kyle cursed, raising his rifle. We've been made. Move, move! The team broke into a sprint, weaving through the corridors as sirens blared and red lights flashed. Terminators poured into the hallways, their metal bodies gleaming in the harsh light. Naruto's mind raced. They were close, so close. If they could just make it to the exit, a Terminator lunged at him, its red eyes glowing with deadly intent. Naruto twisted, his hands shooting out in a blur. Rasengan! The energy sphere slammed into the machine, sending it crashing into the wall. But more were coming, relentless and unyielding. Keep moving, Naruto shouted, his voice raw with urgency. Get them out of here. Kyle and the others covered the family, firing in controlled bursts as they pushed toward the exit. Naruto fought off the Terminators, his chakra flaring as he moved, striking with lethal precision. They burst out of the building, the cold night air hitting them like a slap. Naruto glanced back, his heart sinking as he saw the horde of machines pouring out behind them. We're not going to make it, one of the fighters shouted, his voice filled with despair. Naruto gritted his teeth, his mind racing. They needed a distraction, something to buy them time. And then he saw it, a fuel truck parked near the perimeter fence. He glanced at Kyle, his eyes filled with determination. Get him out of here, I'll buy you time. Kyle's eyes widened. Naruto, what are you? But Naruto was already moving, sprinting toward the truck. He skidded to a stop next to it, his hands glowing with chakra as he slammed them into the side. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of clones appeared, each grabbing a piece of the truck. They heaved, lifting the vehicle off its wheels, and then, with a collective yell, hurled it toward the oncoming Terminators. The truck exploded in a massive fireball, the shockwave rattling the ground. Naruto's clones vanished in a puff of smoke as the flames roared, blocking the Terminator's advance. Go! Naruto shouted, turning back to the team. Get them out of here, now! Kyle hesitated, his face a mask of conflict, but then he nodded, grabbing the family and leading them away. Naruto watched them go, relief and exhaustion washing over him. But there was no time to rest. The Terminators were already pushing through the flames, their metal bodies glowing red-hot from the heat. Naruto took a deep breath, his gaze steeling. He had to hold them off, had to buy enough time for the others to escape. Come on, you bastards, he muttered, his voice low and fierce. Let's see what you've got. The machines charged, and Naruto met them head-on, his heart blazing with the determination to protect those he cared about, no matter the cost. Chapter 24. Holding the line. Naruto stood his ground, watching as the line of Terminators advanced through the smoldering remains of the truck. The explosion had slowed them down, but it wouldn't hold them back for long. He could feel the heat from the fire, sweat trickling down his face, but his mind was focused, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Let's see if you can handle this, he muttered under his breath, forming a series of quick hand seals. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Dozens of shadow clones materialized around him, their expressions mirroring his determination. Without missing a beat, they charged forward, each one wielding a kunai, or a makeshift weapon they had picked up along the way. The first few clones leaped at the leading Terminators, slashing at joints and weak points, but the machines were relentless. Metal fists swung out, shattering clones into clouds of smoke, but more immediately took their place. Naruto himself weaved between the machines, his movements swift and precise as he targeted their sensors and limbs. Rasengan, he shouted, slamming a spiraling sphere of chakra into a Terminator's chest. The force of the attack sent the machine flying back, crashing into its comrades and buying a few more precious seconds. Despite the chaos, Naruto's eyes kept darting back to the exit where Kyle and the others had escaped. He needed to make sure they got clear, that Jules's family was safe. His chakra reserves were still recovering, and he didn't have Kurama's full strength to draw on, but he would use every ounce of what he had left. Another Terminator lunged at him, its red eyes glowing menacingly. Naruto ducked under its grasp, spinning and planting a kunai into the back of its neck. Sparks flew as the machine staggered, and Naruto kicked it back into the fray, using the brief respite to regroup with his clones. Keep them busy, he ordered, his clones nodding before surging forward again, overwhelming the machines with sheer numbers. The real Naruto hung back, his mind racing as he tried to formulate a plan. They couldn't keep this up forever. They needed to find a way to retreat before they were overwhelmed. A sudden roar filled the air, and Naruto looked up to see a pair of HK aerial drones swooping down, their searchlights sweeping the ground. His heart sank. Reinforcements. The drones opened fire, heavy plasma bolts raining down and tearing through his clones, leaving smoking craters where they hit. Naruto gritted his teeth, cursing under his breath. He had to think fast. He leapt to the side, narrowly avoiding a blast, and formed another set of hand seals. Wind style, gale palm. A powerful gust of wind erupted from his hands, catching one of the drones off guard. The machine wobbled in the air, thrown off balance, and Naruto seized the moment, launching himself at it with a Rasengan ready in his hand. He hit the drone dead center, the Rasengan drilling into its chassis and sending it spinning out of control. It crashed into the ground in a shower of sparks and metal, but the second drone was already turning its guns on him. "Damn it!" Naruto muttered, diving behind the remains of the first drone as plasma bolts exploded around him. He was running out of options, his chakra reserves dangerously low. He needed a way out, something to turn the tide. His mind raced through his limited jutsu arsenal. Then he remembered something. He had been working on a technique that didn't require Kurama's chakra, but it was risky, unstable. Still, it was better than nothing. He peeked around the wreckage, seeing the Terminators advancing again, the drone hovering overhead, its guns locked on him. He took a deep breath, centering himself, and then began to form the seals. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. This time, only 4 clones appeared, but each of them began to focus chakra into their hands, mimicking Naruto's movements. The real Naruto concentrated, feeling the energy build up in his palm, forming a small spinning sphere of wind chakra. Wind-style Rasen Shuriken. The Rasen Shuriken hummed with power, its edges sharp and deadly. Naruto glanced at his clones, nodding, and they leapt into action. 2 of them charged at the Terminators, drawing their fire and clearing a path, while the other 2 leapt at the remaining drone, hurling kunai and shuriken to distract it. Naruto dashed forward, the Rasen Shuriken blazing in his hand. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, hurling the spinning vortex of wind and chakra at the cluster of Terminators. The Rasen Shuriken hit with a deafening roar, the explosion of wind and chakra tearing through the machines, shredding metal and circuits in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave sent Naruto flying back, the force of his own attack almost overwhelming. He landed hard, rolling to his feet as the smoke and dust cleared. The Terminators were down, their bodies twisted and broken, sparks flickering from shattered limbs. The drone, caught in the blast, crashed into the ground in a heap of burning wreckage. Naruto panted, his entire body aching. He was drained, his chakra nearly depleted. But they had bought some time. He needed to get out. Regroup with the others before more reinforcements arrived. He stumbled toward the exit, his steps unsteady. The base was eerily quiet now, the only sound the crackling of flames and the distant rumble of machinery. As he reached the open ground, he saw a small group of resistance fighters waiting for him, their faces a mix of relief and awe. "Holy shit, Naruto," one of them muttered, his voice shaking. You really did it." Naruto managed a tired smile. "Just doing my part," he said, his voice hoarse. "Is everyone safe?" Kyle stepped forward, nodding. "Yeah, they're safe. We got Jules's family out and evacuated most of the personnel. We're regrouping at the secondary base." Naruto nodded, relief flooding through him. "Good. Let's get out of here before they send more." Kyle clapped him on the shoulder, his expression serious. "You saved a lot of lives today, Naruto. I don't know how you did it, but thank you." Naruto shook his head. "We're all in this together, right? I'm just glad I could help." They moved out quickly, leaving the smoldering wreckage behind. As they made their way back through the ruined city, Naruto's mind kept drifting back to Jules and her family. He had risked everything to help them, and he could only hope it had been worth it. But he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that things were going to get even more complicated. Skynet was relentless, and the Resistance's resources were stretched thin. They had won a small victory today, but the war was far from over. As they reached the rendezvous point, Naruto looked back at the dark, shattered skyline, his heart heavy with the weight of what was to come. He had found allies in this new world, but he couldn't forget his own mission, to find a way back, to protect his own world from this nightmare. He took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. Whatever it took, he would find a way. For now, though, he had to focus on surviving and protecting the people around him. One battle at a time. Chapter 25. Shadows of Doubt. The secondary base was a stark contrast to the chaos and destruction they had left behind. Hidden beneath the rubble of a collapsed skyscraper, it was a sprawling network of tunnels and makeshift rooms, dimly lit and reinforced against the ever-present threat of Skynet's surveillance. Naruto followed Kyle down a narrow hallway, the air heavy with the tension of too many people crammed into too small a space. They reached a large, open room that served as the base's central command center. Resistance members moved about, checking maps and equipment, their faces grim and determined. Naruto could see the fatigue in their eyes, the toll this endless war was taking on them. John Connor was there, standing over a table covered in blueprints and tactical data. He looked up as Naruto and Kyle approached, his gaze sharp and assessing. "Kyle filled me in on what happened," John said, his voice calm but edged with concern. "You did a hell of a job out there, Naruto. We'd have lost a lot more people if it weren't for you." Naruto nodded, still feeling the exhaustion in his bones. "I'm just glad everyone made it out. But we have a problem." He glanced around, lowering his voice. "I think there's a spy in the base." John's expression hardened. "A spy?" "Yeah, there were a lot of coincidences during the attack. They knew exactly where to hit us and when. Someone tipped them off." Kyle frowned, glancing at John. "We've had suspicions for a while, but no proof. If there's a leak, we need to find it fast. We can't afford to keep losing ground." John nodded, his jaw clenched. "Agreed. We'll need to conduct a full security sweep. But it won't be easy. People are already on edge. This could make things worse." Naruto took a deep breath. "I'll help however I can. I know I'm an outsider here, but I want to make sure everyone's safe." John looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "I appreciate that. For now, try to get some rest. We'll need you at full strength if things go south." Naruto opened his mouth to protest, but a wave of dizziness hit him, and he realized just how drained he was. "All right, but if you need anything, let me know." Kyle clapped him on the shoulder. "Come on, I'll show you to the barracks. You've earned some downtime." Naruto followed him down another hallway, his thoughts racing. A spy in the resistance. It made sense, but it complicated things even more. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that every move they made was under scrutiny. As they reached the barracks, a small, cramped room lined with bunks, Kyle turned to him. "Get some sleep. We'll figure this out. Just be careful who you trust, all right?" Naruto nodded, too tired to argue. "I will. Thanks, Kyle." He collapsed onto a bunk, closing his eyes. Despite his exhaustion, sleep didn't come easily. His mind kept replaying the events of the day, the faces of the people he had fought beside, the fear and determination in their eyes. He had to protect them, had to find a way to keep them safe. Eventually, exhaustion won out, and he drifted off, his dreams filled with fire and steel. The next morning, Naruto woke to the sound of raised voices outside the barracks. He rubbed his eyes, swinging his legs over the side of the bunk as he listened. There was an edge of panic in the voices, something urgent. He got up, heading for the door, and found a small crowd gathered near the entrance to the command center. Kyle was there, talking to a young woman with short, dark hair and a fierce expression. "What's going on?" Naruto asked as he approached. Kyle turned, his expression grim. "We've got a problem. 2 of our scouts were found dead outside the perimeter. Someone slit their throats." Naruto felt a chill run down his spine. "Do we know who did it?" The woman shook her head, her jaw tight. "No, but it's got everyone spooked. People are starting to point fingers, saying it's an inside job. Morale's already low. This could push us over the edge." Naruto clenched his fists, anger simmering beneath the surface. Whoever this spy was, they were endangering everyone in the base. "We need to find them, fast, before they can do any more damage." Kyle nodded. "John's already ordered a full lockdown. No one in or out until we get this sorted. But it's going to be tough. People are scared, and scared people do stupid things." Naruto glanced around at the tense faces of the resistance fighters. He could see the fear in their eyes, the suspicion. It was a powder keg waiting to explode. We need to keep everyone calm. If we start turning on each other, We're playing right into Skynet's hands. Kyle sighed. Easier said than done, but you're right, we'll do what we can. As they turned to head back to the command center, Naruto caught a glimpse of a figure in the shadows, watching them. He tensed, but the figure slipped away before he could get a better look. "Did you see that?" he asked, pointing to where the figure had been. Kyle frowned, squinting into the dim light. "See what?" "There was someone there watching us. They're gone now, but..." Naruto's voice trailed off, a sense of unease settling in his stomach. Was it the spy, or just another frightened soldier? "Keep your eyes open," Kyle said. "We can't afford any surprises right now." Naruto nodded, his senses on high alert. He felt like he was walking through a minefield, every step fraught with danger. They had to find this spy, but how? Skynet could have sleeper agents, humans implanted with chips or reprogrammed just like the machines. As they reached the command center, John was there, his face set in grim lines. "We've got a lead," he said without preamble. "One of our scouts saw a group of armed men approaching from the east. Could be bandits, could be Skynet sympathizers. We need to check it out." Naruto nodded. "I'll go. I can move faster on my own." John shook his head. "I need you here, Naruto. If there's a spy, we can't risk leaving the base undefended. I've already sent a team to investigate." Naruto bit back his frustration. He hated sitting around when there was action to be taken, but John was right. If the spy made another move while he was gone... All right, but if they need backup, I'll let you know, John said. For now, just stay alert. Naruto nodded, turning to leave, but as he did, he felt a hand on his arm. He turned to see the dark-haired woman from earlier, her eyes narrowed. "You're Naruto, right?" she asked, her voice low. "John's new secret weapon?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Something like that. And you are?" "Linda," she said. "I'm in charge of scouting operations. Listen, I don't know what your deal is, but we're not going to make it through this if you keep playing lone wolf. We're a team here. We watch each other's backs." Naruto met her gaze, seeing the challenge there. "I get it, but I'm not here to take over. I just want to help." "Good," she said, her expression softening slightly. "Because we need all the help we can get. Just don't do anything crazy, all right?" Naruto chuckled, the tension easing a bit. "No promises, but I'll try." She gave him a small smile, then turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, feeling a bit lighter. He was starting to get a feel for this place, these people. They were strong, determined, but they were also scared, vulnerable. He had to find this spy, whoever they were, before things got worse. But for now, he had to wait, to watch, and be ready. Whatever was coming next, he would face it head on. That was the only way he knew how to fight. Subscribe to Sakura Audiobooks. Give us a thumbs up and leave a comment if you enjoy our work. Your support means a lot to us.